He's right now begging other dictators, Iran, Venezuela, to produce oil, but he keeps saying no to American energy.
Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Now, just this morning, we heard President Biden announce that he is banning all Russian oil imports. There were two lines from his speech that I want to get your thoughts on first.
It's simply not true that my administration or policies are holding back domestic energy production. That's simply not true. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
Kick us off here. What are your thoughts on what the president had to say?
Well, Samantha, it's good to be with you. And clearly, President Biden doesn't understand energy markets because day one, when he took the oath of office, he canceled the Keystone Pipeline, which was a stable supply of Canadian oil into the United States. He shut that off. But also, right before Putin moved in on Ukraine, Joe Biden instituted a complete freeze of any new oil and gas leases in the United States of America. I don't know if he's aware he did that, but that, of course, had a chilling effect on our ability to produce energy. And then he started begging Putin to produce more oil. In fact, he came out against the ban on oil from Russia just days ago, and now he's reversed course because of public pressure. The problem is he still won't say yes to American energy. He's right now begging other dictators, Iran, Venezuela, to produce oil, but he keeps saying no to American energy. And so he wonders why gas prices today hit the highest mark in American history. It's because he shut off American energy. He hasn't approved a new pipeline anywhere in the United States since he's been president. He hasn't approved an LNG permit to export natural gas to our allies around the world. That makes them more dependent on Russian oil. Joe Biden did all those things. And by the way, when he took the oath of office, we were paying a whole lot less for oil and gas because he shut off American energy. He emboldened people like Putin, who was making $700 million a day selling Russian oil to America and Europe because of Biden's anti-American policies. He's got to change those anti-American energy policies to lower prices and to gut enemies around the world like Russia and Iran.
And just to, continue talking a little bit more about Europe and their reliance on Russian oil and Russian energy. Russia is their number one importer for oil and for their energy. Will it take some more action from Europe to actually see Putin maybe move a little bit in terms of his war in Ukraine? I mean, the U.S. Imported in 2021 just about 8% of Russian oil. Europe imports a lot more Russian oil. So can you talk more about, what we can expect or what we can hope to expect from Europe?
Right. Yeah, because Europe's getting about 40% of their oil from Russia. You look at Germany with the Nord Stream and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, both of those. But Nord Stream is bringing a lot of energy from Russia. President Trump was very critical of Germany for signing massive deals to get energy from Russia because he said back then, this is years ago, President Trump warned this could make them more dependent on Russian energy, and that would embolden Putin to be able to do other things. Putin's financing his war in Ukraine mostly off the backs of oil he's selling to America and Russia. Again, $700 million a day. And so this should have been cut off months ago, instead of Biden months ago begging Putin to produce more oil. And maybe Biden was hoping that American people would forget that. But I mean, the video's not that old of Joe Biden begging Putin to produce more oil. The problem is he's finally come around to saying, okay, maybe we won't use Russian oil. The problem is he's not replacing with American energy. He's now begging other dictators. I don't know what Biden's infatuation with foreign dictators are, but he was getting it from Russia. Now he wants to get it from Iran and Venezuela. It's time to get it from America. It's right here. We can produce all of our own energy and send it to our friends around the world, taking Putin's leverage away and taking the leverage of other bad actors away.
And something else he talked about during his speech today was that
in coordination with our partners, we've already announced that we're releasing 60 million barrels of oil from our joint oil reserves. Half of that, 30 million, is coming from the United States.
In the United States alone, we use about 20 million barrels of oil a day. So how does that, compare? I mean, 60 million barrels is not, going to be sustainable. And then also, how do we replace that oil?
Yeah, and this is where President Biden's naivete on energy policy is hurting America and our allies around the world. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is not a piggy bank. It's not some little toy to go and try to cover for your bad policies. It's there in case you've got some kind of global disruption where for some short period of time, for a few weeks, you might need to replace oil that was coming from somewhere else that goes offline because of a war, like if Saudi Arabia wasn't providing us oil. It's not to replace Russian oil with our strategic petroleum reserves. And so, as you point out, that's got to get backfilled. President Trump had filled up the strategic petroleum reserve when oil was a lot cheaper, by the way, when it was probably $20 or $30 a barrel. And then let's just keep that in mind. Just a few years ago, when Donald Trump was president, we had a robust, all of the above American energy strategy. We were paying less than $50 a barrel for oil. Today, it's over $120 a barrel because of President Biden's anti-American energy policies. Bad policies have a real impact on inflation, on American families, and unfortunately, on our friends around the world who are hurting from those bad Biden strategies.
And just speaking of American families, we had the transportation secretary on Monday encouraging people to switch to electric cars in order to cut down on gas prices.
Clean transportation can bring significant cost savings for the American people as well. Last month, we announced a $5 billion investment to build out a nationwide electric vehicle charging network so that people from rural to suburban to urban communities can all benefit from the gas savings of driving an EV.
What's your reaction to what Secretary Buttigieg had to say?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Secretary Buttigieg forgot that we have a supply chain crisis, in part because of their creation. It should be something he's out there fixing. But if somebody wanted to go buy an electric car today, they're going to have a hard time finding it. They're expensive. They're not available. But at the same time, over 90% of Americans drive cars that run on fossil fuels. Does he just think that tomorrow we're going to replace it? Right now, the price of cars, used and new, are dramatically higher because of inflation that's brought on by Biden's spending. But at the same time, where do you think you're going to get the energy for the electric car? They act like you just plug it into a tree. I mean, you've got to plug it into a power source. Most of those electric cars are fueled by fossil fuels, meaning natural gas that fuels your home. Something is going to provide your electricity. Might be nuclear power, it might be coal. It's probably more than likely natural gas. They're against natural gas in America. So they're making us more reliant on these foreign countries, and they act like, hey, just plug your car into a tree. It's all magic. People know that this is lunacy. These policies are coming out with are hurting families. And you could tell they don't even really understand what they're talking about because they say things like, well, just go, trade in your gasoline powered car with an electric car tomorrow because they're just sitting on the lot ready to go. It's not how things work. And by the way, you've still got a car note. Or are you going to just pay your car note and keep your car in the driveway? These people don't live in the real world. And by the way, they're driving around in not in electric cars. Most of them are driving around in cars driven that are fueled by gasoline. And they're telling you not to. It's the same people that said, hey, stay at home by yourself during Thanksgiving. And then they were out partying with their friends at restaurants without masks on during COVID.